Okay, well, welcome to the Sport and Entertainment Management Lecture Series. I'm so glad you guys could all join us today. But oh, how I wish the panelists were back here on campus at USC. They could share a few memories, 8 a.m. Friday morning classes, maybe a quiz Friday, some of those good memories that you still might have. But this is a great opportunity for the University of South Carolina and the Department of Sport and Entertainment to share with the Carolina community and our students by having this panel and this lecture series. Today, 3 sport and entertainment graduates who have had great success in their careers and having great success in their careers. I have to think back on how proud Dr. Lewis would be to seeing you in this panel right now today. And by the way, 2 of them married graduates of South Carolina too in the Department of Sport and Entertainment. I guess 5 points must have been good to them during their careers here. Thank you for taking the time to share your experiences with the department and with the students here in the Carolina community. I really do appreciate it, not only from a professional, but a personal basis. This lecture series was made possible and was endowed by NASCAR. They have been an excellent partner for our department for decades, and we can't thank them enough for endowing this lecture series. Now, I'd like to introduce our panelists, but in order to do that, I'm going to introduce Madison Brambam, who is from Kingwood, Texas, outside of Houston. And she happens to be my graduate assistant, so she didn't have any choice. That's not true. Her undergraduate degree is from Texas A&M Kingsville. She played college volleyball and now is at the University of South Carolina as a beach volleyball player. Tough life. Her name is Maddie. So Maddie, it's time to introduce our panelists. Thank you again for all coming. Bye.
Well, thank you, Dr. Regan, for allowing me to introduce these distinguished panelists we have today. I feel honored. But first, I'd like to introduce our moderator today, Professor Sporty Geralds. We all know him as a venue management professor here at the SPTE program, but he has extensive industry experience and is an author of 4 highly successful books. Professor Geralds holds a degree in criminal justice and master's degrees in public administration and another in sport management. He started his career at the Hampton, Virginia Coliseum in 1983, and shortly after accepted a position at the Charlotte Coliseum as the assistant manager in 1988. In just 2 years, he became the manager of the Charlotte Coliseum and was responsible for the day-to-day operations of the venue. This included overseeing a $12 million budget and a staff of over 60 full-time and 600 part-time employees. He is one of only 300 certified venue executives in the world and has a very impressive portfolio of events that he has coordinated. Not only does he grace us with his expertise in the classroom, but he also works with the Charlotte Hornets in their community relations department. Professor Geralds, thank you for being our moderator this afternoon. I'm sure you'll keep us entertained with plenty of thought-provoking questions. Now to introduce our panelists. First, we have Mr. Jared Rice with us today, who is currently the Senior Vice President of Tournament Revenue and has been the Executive Director for the Players Championship since January of 2017. Before joining the Players staff in June of 2010, he spent 4 years in multiple roles at the PGA Tour, including business development and global licensing. While in those positions, Jared oversaw development of PGA Tour licensing programs worldwide and assisted with the sale of PGA Tour title sponsorships and official marketing partner sponsorships. Rice was born in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and he graduated from the University of South Carolina with a degree in sport marketing and business administration. He joined the PGA Tour from the Detroit Red Wings organization after spending 5 years with the Walt Disney Company during their ownership of the Anaheim Angels and the Mighty Ducks. We're very lucky to be hearing from him today. Next, we have Casey Sparks, who is currently the Vice President of Oakview Group in Austin, Texas, and the Assistant General Manager of the Moody Center since November of 2020. Here she assists with overall strategy and business development for potential and existing clients in the Midwest region, as well as managing the day-to-day operations for the opening of the $338 million arena on the University of Texas campus. She has 17 years of industry experience that started off here in Columbia, South Carolina, where she interned at the Colonial Life Arena. She was then recruited to the AT&T Center in San Antonio, Texas, home to the San Antonio Spurs, where she was titled the marketing manager. After that, she moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and became the regional director for sales and marketing for 17 facilities, including the Bank of Oklahoma Center, that is the top-ranked arena in the United States, and has been nominated as Concert Venue of the Year for the past decade. She continues her career in Charlottesville, Virginia, working for Red Light Management, which is the largest independent artist management company in the world in 2010. 2 years later, she relocated again to Pensacola, Florida, where she served as the assistant general manager for the Pensacola Bay Center. After her time there, she returned to Tulsa and the Bank of Oklahoma Center to be assistant general manager in 2014. Shortly after that, she was promoted to general manager in 2018, where she also oversees the Cox Business Convention Center. She is also an alumni of the university and earned her bachelor's in sport entertainment management here in 2002. Again, we're very lucky to be hearing from Ms. Sparks today and to get her take on the industry. And last but not least, we have Matt Homan with us today. He's the president and general manager for the Trail Drive Management Corporation. This is a not-for-profit operating entity that manages the 14,000-seat Dickies Arena that opened in November of 2019 in Fort Worth. Mr. Homan has over 2 decades of arena experience and came to Fort Worth after working for Comcast Spectator as the general manager at the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia. There, he oversaw, managed, and planned the day-to-day operations and future growth of the arena. Matt scheduled and booked 248 events for the venue in 2014, and in his time at the Wells Fargo Center, he helped bid, plan, and execute major events, including NCAA wrestling and basketball, the Rolling Stones, and more. Prior to managing the Wells Fargo Center, Matt worked for Spectra Venue Management, where he ran the Iowa Event Center in Des Moines, Iowa, as the general manager for 5 years. He worked for Spectra Venue Management as the assistant general manager and director of event services at Colonial Life Arena in Columbia, South Carolina, event manager at the Sovereign Bank Arena in Trenton, New Jersey, and assistant manager of group sales at the Wells Fargo Center. And one of the most important facts to note is that Mr. Homan also earned his bachelor's degree in sport entertainment management from the University of South Carolina. So thank you for all being here and giving us your insight in the industry and what the effects this pandemic has had on everyone. We're very thankful to have you here with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maddie. What a great introduction. Maddie is one of our great grad students, so we appreciate her serving in that role today. Welcome, students, alumni, faculty, and industry friends. We got a great program lined up for you today. I appreciate Dr. Regan's trust in me. He knows I'm a venue guy, and so it's a pleasure to be with some venue professionals. He's being very humble. This is the 15th year that we've had the executive seminar for Dr. Regan. And so it's we have it every year, but it's even more special when we have people who have been through our program as participants, and that doesn't always happen. So thank you to all of you for being here today. Dr. Regan has made it clear, and you guys know I'm the guy who says every day is fantastic. We are going to be looking out of the front windshield today and not the rearview mirror. Venue managers have to be optimistic, but we have to be realistic as well. And so hopefully we're going to share some of the things that these industry professionals have learned over the last few months and going forward, how they're going to make their venues the place to be in their respective communities. And so you've heard their bios. I want to give each one of them a chance to explain a little bit about their venues now. And Casey, we start with you, and you told us a story yesterday as we were doing some prep, and I just want you to share that story about Dr. Regan so particularly our current students don't feel like they are the only ones that he holds to high standards. So I'll let you tell that story and then share a little bit about the exciting new Moody Center that's coming out of the ground.
Well, thank you. And thank you all for having me and asking me to do this and putting me in the hot seat as the first one to go and give this story about Dr. Regan. But most of you, if you haven't yet, you will have that capstone class that you are required to take in order to graduate. And I guess he's still doing it the same way he did it when I was there, but it was always at 8 a.m. I think on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I think is what time that class was. And as a college student, many of you guys can relate, you know, you have a job, you're working. At the time I was bartending and just trying to make ends meet, and bartending super late, and, you know, getting in bed at 3 a.m. sometimes and having to get up and be at his class. And he was, he doesn't take very kindly to people that fall asleep in his class. And one day, and the only time I ever did that, worked super late, fell asleep. And I just remember I was kind of, I woke up as people were leaving, and I wanted to kind of scoot out, and hopefully he didn't see me. And he just very calmly and just looked at me and did his little finger like this. And I just knew I was in trouble. And so I went up, and he said, you know, you get one time to fall asleep in my class and you've already used it. Don't let it happen again. And scared me to death. And of course, I never repeated that mistake moving forward. I can't see Dr. Regan's face right now to see how he's reacting to that, but I never forgot it.
All right, share with us the Moody Center and what that building is going to look like in your community.
Yeah, so the Moody Center, it's an exciting project. It's really one of the first of its kind. It's 100% privately funded on the University of Texas campus where the Longhorns play. And it's built first for music. It's a concert venue first where the basketball teams, the men's and women's basketball teams will play. It's about $350 million building, a little less, but that doesn't include the land that was donated from the university. So the equity partners in this project are Oakview Group, which is my company, Live Nation, largest content provider in the world, with C3, who's the local kind of Live Nation office in town, as well as Matthew McConaughey, who is a alumnus and a professor from the University of Texas. He is deemed our Minister of Culture. So he is very much involved in lots of design elements in the facility, and will play a big role in our vibe and cool brand that we end up launching, that we're working on right now. But yeah, so it's one of its kind, 100% funded university arena, opens spring of 2022.
Matt, we're going to go to you. Thank you, Casey. Matt, we're going to go to you to tell us about Dickies Arena.
Yeah, so Dickies Arena opened last November, and we were open for 4 months before the pandemic hit, and we had to shut down our operations. Fortunately, we had a very successful opening in those 4 months. You know, I took this job in Fort Worth because I saw a great opportunity. You know, I was in Philadelphia running the Wells Fargo Center. For me, at that point in my career, was probably you know, a key highlight of something I wanted to do and a goal of where I wanted to be in my career at some point, running an NHL and NBA facility. And what better one than my hometown I grew up going to as a kid. So when this Fort Worth opportunity came up, you know, it was a unique private-public partnership. And, you know, we are a 501c3. So at the end of the day, we opened up with very little debt, and any net revenues that we make just get put back into the facility. And I thought this was something that was truly remarkable and different than most other facilities. So it really gave me a chance, you know, in a market that I thought was exploding. You know, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but, you know, Fort Worth is the 13th largest city in the United States, and it's growing at a faster pace than any other top 20 city. So, and they had no sports and entertainment venue on this side of town. So I really thought it was great opportunity for us to come in, and really excited about this venue. It's one of the nicest arenas in the United States. That was, a lot of it was gifted by a philanthropic person here in town. So really makes it special. Proud to be a part of it, and proud to be with my team on Trail Drive Management Corp.
Matt, you have a kind of an anchor tenant in the rodeo or livestock show. Can you talk a little bit about that for a moment?
Yeah, so that was the other unique thing, is that when we came to the facility, our anchor tenant was only going to be the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo and its rodeo performances. which happens, there's 25 performances. It happens over a 23-day span, really in the beginning of January to the beginning of February. And I just thought that was a unique opportunity for us as an arena to come in and offer all this other programming, not have to be blocked out because of NHL dates or NBA dates and playoff holds. So it really gave us an opportunity to, to grow the business. The Stock Show is our partner. They're kind of like a sister company almost, as they're a 501c3 as well. And any net revenues they make just get put back into the Will Rogers campus, which we're adjacent to. So really unique situation and partnership that we had with the Stock Show. And, as we came into this, actually, as we went in and selling sponsorships and, premium seating and everything else, it was really in a conjoined partnership with the Stock Show, which was just a tremendous idea.
Great, thanks. I must admit, if you guys haven't been following the weather in our country, Casey and Matt are in Texas, and a lot of snow, and now we transition, as Dr. Regan would say, it's a beautiful Carolina day here in Columbia. Jared, you want to give us the weather report down in Florida and share a little bit about your stadium course that you manage with the players?
Sure. Calling in here from Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida, which is about 20 miles southeast of Jacksonville on the coast here. And it's pretty rough today. It's like 68 and a few clouds. So we're had to wear a light coat on the way in, but this is a pretty well different than Matt and Casey in terms of their venues. Not only climate today, but you heard new investment, a minister of culture. That's going to be hard to top with Mr. McConaughey, but a little bit different here at the home of the PGA Tour. So TPC Sawgrass really has been here since 1982, and I think it's pretty interesting that the PGA Tour, being the association of men's professional golf, we look to move the headquarters from Washington, D.C. To Ponte Vedra in the late 70s. And Dean Beeman, our commissioner at the time, had really had an affinity for Jacksonville when he was playing the Jacksonville Open, and was approached by some local family-owned land. I still see the Fletchers and Publix here from time to time. It was two brothers that owned 220 acres of swampland, and they sold that to Mr. Beeman for $1. And they believed that in his vision of bringing the entire tour, the league headquarters to Ponte Vedra, and his vision to build a golf course that was ahead of its time and would withstand the test of time and be a very purpose-built golf course for the best players in the world to play every year. So they got behind that, sold the property to us for a year. And in 1982, we hosted our first Players Championship at TPC Sawgrass. And this year will be our 47th playing. So we're coming up on that in about 3 short weeks.
Great. Jared, thanks so much. We're going to stay with you. Can you share, you got hit right when the pandemic kind of started there. Can you just share what happened as your tournament was going on, and go ahead and share how you're looking going forward this year and how you're going to be doing with the limited capacity that you'll have available to you?
Yeah, I think what was interesting about our sport is that we're a built to suit facility, meaning, of course, the golf course is here and the clubhouse is here, but all of those hospitality structures are built based on our ability to sell them. So they're temporary. And so we faced going into last year, the entire expense of our hospitality program was completed. So we were 3 days into our week when we had to cancel on March 12th. That in of itself was a pretty interesting turn of events, waking up or going to bed late on Wednesday night, making the decision to continue on Thursday with fans. Then by 9:30 p.m. on Thursday, we had made the decision to cancel the tournament, and deciding in between that to play on Friday with fans. So it was certainly a trying day of events. But that evening we made the decision that this was the start of how we come back in 2021. So really what was important was to stabilize the business, to really go to our partners and establish that there had been value delivered through 3 days of competition. We had costs incurred, which is fairly evident by anyone who was here. And as is our mission, we have a responsibility as a public trust to provide charitable and economic impact back to the community. Since 1974, the Players has delivered over $100 million in charitable contributions to the Northeast Florida community. As a league, the PGA Tour has donated more to charity in our lifetime than any other sports league combined, which in and of itself is an interesting stat if you think about the true impact of that. So as we were getting out of 2020, how do we keep being true to our partners and to our mission in our community? So we had that plan that really put us on a path to 2021. And, we got to a point here probably in late fall where we determined that we were going to have to make a change for 2021 and move forward on a limited capacity plan where we would have approximately 20% of our normal max capacity available to us out here at TPC Sawgrass, and that's what we've sold to and planned for 3 weeks from today.
Awesome. Kind of following up on that, Matt, can you share, I know when I was managing the building, we had the NBA players strike. This has been a lot different than that, but can you share how you have responded to people who are your partners and have signage and those kinds of opportunities in your building? How are you going to make good for them?
Yeah, well, and it's been a lot. We've learned a lot. I think it's been different than the NBA and NHL strikes that we were all a part of. As we started this, we only actually have 7 partners in the building, and we believe less is more. And we went out and actively sold that partnership with less is more, giving the partners more opportunities in the facility. So all of our partners are category exclusive. For example, Dickies is workwear, Chevrolet is our automotive, Reliant is our energy. So anyway, in explaining that, we've had great conversations with them along the way. And we had some difficult conversations too, and with some of the alcohol vendors, it was difficult to come in, because they missed some marketing opportunities. We were very fortunate that in our first, 4 months of operation that we hosted 70 events. So nearly, we told them, I think when we went into it, we thought we'd do 120 events. If we would have had a full year, we probably would have done closer to 160 events. So we hosted 70 events in that first year, kind of explained to them where we were, and talked about how we can start making up for this. And I'm proud to sit here today and say that every one of our partners, not only worked with us on the financial terms, but all but one of them actually extended our agreement for 3 years through this process as well. So that's something that we are very proud about. It's that tight relationships that we have. Through this, they missed a half a year of the arena. They then missed a year of the stock show in 2021, which we then canceled. So we went to them with that open mind and talked to them into not only just regrouping and recouping their money, there's dollars spent and putting them towards this year, but then going back and actually adding 3 years to their agreement as well. And some of them, it took some time, they had to go to boards and they had to understand it, but we did it, we renewed them at the current prices of where they're at right now with no escalators. And I think that was a factor that was really important to them. And they saw it as great value. I think, as we dive into this, Fort Worth is now getting its own identity, and they're seeing that value in that identity over here in Fort Worth, which I think is huge to our partners.
Great. Casey, I want to shift a little bit to you. You were fortunate in this in that you hadn't been open. You were still, the building was, being built. So can you share a little bit with us? Was there any interruption in construction? And then more importantly, as we kind of relate this to the pandemic, were you able to incorporate the architects, the construction companies, were they able to incorporate some new sort of thinking into how we're going to move forward with our fans and how we can make the venue safe for them?
Yeah, sure. I was still am extremely fortunate to be working for a facility that is not open yet, that, our budget is fine because we're not relying on events as it is right now because we're in the pre-opening phase of the arena. Since I've been on since November, we, Oakview Group and the construction teams, the architects, all of that, we have not seen any significant shutdowns because of the pandemic or COVID related issues. We have been extremely, extremely careful about sanitization efforts and safety protocols. For any of you, I know Matt obviously has opened an arena with me in Columbia. This is my third arena that I've opened, and I never thought that it was possible to do it remotely. I think the pandemic has taught us that you can do just about anything remotely that you need to. And so it's just adapting to that. Zoom calls 24/7 and just being like, we can meet in person, we physically can, but we try not to right now unless it's just unavoidable. But no significant delays due to COVID right now. We are fortunate as well as, I was at BOK Center in Tulsa when this hit. And I think Matt and everybody can commiserate that it just seemed like daily the information and the science was changing, and we would run over here and mitigate here and then run over here and the next day and try to fix it over here. And it was just chaos for a while. What we've learned over the past year since this has been going on is that it seems to be very much airborne. 95% of the problem is airborne is what I've heard. So a big focus of ours that we were able to pivot on with Oakview in this arena is obviously put a huge emphasis on air quality in the facility, and really being able to change over the air and recycle the air quickly, and include UV lights in order to filter that air through that and kill viruses and that sort of thing. So that is something that we were able to pivot on with being new construction. I think everybody is looking at points of sale, how to stop that, well, how to make most things touchless. So our concession stands have a focus on that we kind of shifted gears towards. And so again, not an existing building yet, so we were fortunate in that regard, but it's when I was in Tulsa and Matt and Jared, to some degree, it's very expensive to retrofit to those type of qualities in an existing facility.
That's great. Casey, I want to just stick with you for a moment. Can you share, give our students and our audience today some idea, since you've been through this a couple of times, you're maybe 14 months or so from opening. Can you sort of share your game plan or how you're going to approach the next few months in terms of operational procedures and how you will begin to staff the building and those kinds of things?
Sure. So my background is marketing. That's my area of expertise for about a decade or so until I got into general management of facilities. And so this opening with my role is much different than it was when I opened Tulsa as the marketing director. So as the assistant GM for the facility, I'm really an extension of every department. My number one goal is to get them the resources and the tools they need to do their job well. With being 14 months out, we're starting to do our hiring. And so my role also is to make sure that we hire the best out there. A lot of my time is spent doing interviews right now. We have our executive team pretty much in place. We've got a few more department heads to hire, but I'm really big on the buzzword culture that I think is used way too much and just kind of flippantly. But myself and my general manager, Jeff Nickler, we are somewhat known in the industry for creating a type of culture and environment that people want to work for. And we work together in Tulsa, and we're working right now to transition that down into Austin. And really that is the sole purpose of attracting the best in the business that want to work for us. After that, it's very much the marketing and the brand and the awareness that comes next. Austin is, people that live in Austin, as you can imagine, being the live music capital of the world, pre-COVID were very much spoiled when it comes to music. At any given day, they can, I think I read somewhere that there's 100, almost 200 live events, musical events going on at any time in the city, from coffee houses to major shows. So building this arena is not top of mind like it was, say, in Columbia when we did it there, in Tulsa when we did it there. It's not the biggest thing that has happened to the city. So a considerable amount of my time right now is spent on awareness and branding of the facility.
Thanks so much. Matt, one of my former students, Madison Duryea, she works at in Miami at the American Airlines Arena. And I know they're using kind of a unique thing. They have some dogs that are monitoring their patrons for COVID. I know when opportunities present themselves, a lot of salesmen, a lot of people have ideas on how they can try to help you with reopening. Have you found anything, or is there anything that's come across your path that is really exciting that you're going to embrace and make part of the Dickies Arena when you guys open back up?
So actually, Sporty, we have been open since August. We've been hosting events since August here at the venue in a limited capacity. We're at a 50% capacity. And we have tried some different things. Obviously, we've done temperature screenings for staff and for patrons. This weekend, we're actually going to host a symphony orchestra, Fort Worth Symphony Orchestra, who normally performs at Bass Hall, and this is their annual gala that they weren't able to do this year, but we can socially distance at the arena. We're going to host that this weekend, where it's going to be 100% of our staff has gone through testing, protocol testing. So which is a new one. I have mixed feelings on that, about itself, but it is something that we're trying and going through, with them. We've done other events where we have different levels of testing in the facility with our staff. We haven't gone down the direction of, looking into the dogs to come into the facility and, and do that, as they can detect people outside the facility with COVID. Actually read a lot about it, and how their training is, but just not sure about it all right now. We have also been talking to a lot of different things, and Casey hit a great point earlier. In these enclosed venues, it's about circulating the air on a regular basis. It's about changing your filters on a regular basis. It's about giving them the opportunity to feel safe. And that's where we've really focused our attention at right now. I think this virus is still very young. I still think there's going to be other viruses in the future. And I think we need to learn about what the best ways moving forward are going to be for our facility before we go spend a lot of money in buying different applications. The UV rays is something that we're actually talking about. The company that actually did our lighting system is doing UV rays into the air quality system. That's something that we're in deep discussions with. So it is something that we're watching and that we're actively looking for the right solution. But we haven't sat there and said, this is going to be our solution to the future. And I think we just need to learn that a little bit right now over the next couple months and, maybe even a year before we kind of finalize that.
Thank you. Jared, Dr. Regan, he's a numbers guy, and you're obviously down to 20% capacity. Can you share with us how people who will get those 20% of the tickets, was there a priority system, or how that's going to affect your revenue models and everything that you would normally have?
Sure. I think the, a couple things I'll touch on is that when we looked at what that attendance would be for 2021, we set out some very clear objectives in terms of business plan, because we're basically zero basing our business. And we need to maintain and maximize revenue. The first goal, obviously, was the health and safety of everyone involved. But when we consider that, how do we safely build out this tournament to maximize and maintain a revenue stream? So where we broke it down was from a hospitality structure perspective, what do we need to do to accomplish a healthy environment? Well, we needed to modify everything. So just that. But like Matt and Casey were talking about, while these are temporary facilities, they're largely enclosed and climate controlled and fully built out. We have venues that are like a club level at an arena where, there's no assigned seating, and it's thousands of people that can just share an experience. Well, that doesn't work anymore. So at least now, so we eliminated that product altogether. We modified all of our suites so that they were largely open air. And when we built this model, we said, okay, well, we feel like we can deliver about 70% of our total capacity via hospitality. And the other 30% would be in what we call grounds tickets, or in our case, we call them stadium passes. And so when we understood that as our universe, we also wanted to make sure that we prioritize people that have been supporting this tournament over the course of a number of years. So we had a series of pre-sales where we would have blocks of tickets, grounds tickets, available to previous ticket buyers and charitable partners, things like that. And we sold out all of our tickets through that mechanic. And then today we had an on sale for the remainder of our grounds tickets over the course of the week, and they sold in 22 minutes. So I think what it says is that, one, there's a great demand. And I think we've, again, being here for 40 years, we've built up a lot of capital and credibility and we have with the community, but we've also been very communicative about, here are the things that we're going to do. And these things aren't a shock to any of us. And they're exactly what Casey and Matt are talking about. What we have started every discussion with is that we are making these decisions out of necessity. And we're asking people to understand the greater good and, be considerate of what's being asked of you. You're going to have to wear a mask. It's non-negotiable. We're asking you to, if you're going to eat or drink, to do so outside, you can't to do it outside of 10 feet from the rope line. We're going to have a temperature check and ask you a couple questions. And if you're not feeling well, stay home, period. And we'll refund your tickets. So, getting back to that, challenging the community that we can show the world, 220 countries are going to, and 2 billion people will receive the telecast of the Players Championship. So my appeal has been, let's show the world that this community can come out and support a major championship and do it in a very responsible way. So maybe that's, me with limited sleep and 21 days to go here, being a little too altruistic or hopeful, but we all know that social distancing is impossible to control, and you can only minimize risk, not eliminate it. We have 12 hours of play on 150 acres. And again, we're going to ask people to do things this year out of necessity, and hopefully they'll answer the call.
Jared, I'm just curious, in terms of your staffing levels, how will that be affected? Will you have as many people, it take as many people to do 20% as it would if the tournament was full scale? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is a real challenge, I think, again, for Matt and Casey would probably say the same, is that we're doing more work, and in our cases with a few less people than we had on our full-time staff. And just kind of all the steps that we're all taking about what it means to get in touch with one another and arranging schedules and so forth. That's a lot of work. We also have a volunteer corps to help deliver the tournament that has been over 2,000 people. So as you think about not only hosting guests, we have 2,000 community members that have said, I'm going to help you run this tournament. And so to say to a volunteer, we can't, we don't have a spot for you anymore, is a challenge. So we, again, gets back to, how do we ask people the right thing and see the bigger picture? So we have less volunteers, but not appreciably. What we're focused on is things like health ambassadors and concierge types that are, making PPE available to people, bringing in paid security to help, maintain awareness about mask wearing. And by that, I mean, it's not, use of force here by any stretch, but, the thing about our business is that volunteer base, and we didn't want to put our volunteers in a position where they're doing anything but, again, asking people to do the right thing. So we'll have a little bit more paid security, but that's, again, being done with purpose.
Morty, I can add to that if that's all right for a second, is yeah, you know, as we bring people back to work, you know, we have a lot of staff just doing a lot of different jobs right now. Like I mentioned, we've been open since the end of August and probably have hosted probably about 30 some events in that time stretch between August and now. And, you know, one of our biggest challenges though have been the part-time workers. And, you know, there's been and we rely on the part-time staff so much, whether it be for concessions, parking, you know, ushers, ticket takers, security. And there's a large contingency of those part-time workers that are probably in the, you know, in an elevated risk category. They're probably above 60 years old. And getting some of them to come back to work obviously has been tough. And there's been a challenge with that. We're starting to see that change a little bit more now over time in the past month and a half. But in the first couple of months going through this, you know, part-time staff, whether we were going to have enough staff to staff the building was probably one of our biggest challenges out there.
And to add to that too, Matt, I mean, I don't know if you face this as well, but the unemployment benefits is a great thing. Obviously, people need that, but it was also having a negative effect on trying to get people to come back to the workforce because they could make more money staying on unemployment. But I wanted to touch just a little bit on what Jared was saying in capacities. And from everything I'm hearing in the industry, large arenas and stadiums are not going to be able to function at a reduced capacity for a long time. It's just the business model is not set up that way. Artists, it's very expensive. Their production is very expensive. It has to have a full house. So the vaccine developments is super, super important. And I feel like we're starting to see some hope in that regard that things are coming back. The weekend, the artists just went on sale, national or worldwide on sale after the Super Bowl. And there was a lot of people in the industry, you know, from the agency perspective, William Morris, CAA, all of the artist management guys, everybody was waiting to see how that was going to come out of the gate, to see if there was consumer confidence in purchasing tickets. And I think he ended up selling over 1 million tickets for his on sale across the board, which was great. So I don't know about you, Matt, but we're starting to get a little bit more, okay, we need you to hold this day for the announce and on sale. And so that's a positive thing that's coming out of it, but everybody is going up full house from what I am seeing, or their intentions are to go at 100%.
Yeah, and just, you know, specifically, Casey, just you're talking specifically about concerts, right? I mean, concerts, live touring needs full capacities before they can do it. But obviously, events, sporting events, and we're doing different types of events, just like Jared's doing down there. You know, that's the start to getting things back on track in my mind. And I think that's what we all look forward to. You know, I'm in the DFW market, and, you know, I think the Mavericks, the Dallas Mavericks announced they're going to go to 5,000 people starting next week. So that's a great start as we start to do this. I think what Jared's doing, golf slowly starting to, you know, bring people back in. I think that's what's doing. You know, here in Fort Worth, we're really excited about Colonial coming back online. They're talking about fans. They think, you know, and quietly right now, their expectation is hoping to get to 75% of what their normal capacity would be. Whether that happens or not, I think we're still a couple weeks away, and we have to see that. But those are the things that we all need to start happening. So live music can then start coming back at a full capacity as well. But you're exactly right.
Well, and elements that have a TV component are better off. You know, the WWEs that they make their money with broadcasting, and the sporting events the majors do, and your product, Jared. So yeah, that has definitely helped out the events with decreased capacities.
Yeah, and we've been real fortunate here in Texas. Obviously, Texas and Florida, where Jared are different than a lot of states right now with their opening capacities. You know, we've been fortunate that we've actually seen events come this way. You know, we did 3 college basketball games because college basketball has been such a mess, and, you know, there's non-conference games. We did 3 of them. 2 of them were on spur of the moment notice, on less than 10 days notice, but we were able to put them on, produce them, and sell some tickets to that and, generate some revenue. We're very fortunate as our organization. We did not furlough or lay off one employee, and we're very proud about that here at Trail Drive Management. We have over 70 full-time staff right now, and there's not many arenas in the United States that can say that. And then the other thing is what we took advantage of just last week. USOC for wrestling was supposed to have the wrestling championships at Penn State. Pennsylvania does not allow that. And we worked with our CVB, Convention and Visitors Bureau, and Sports Commission, and we were able to secure that event. And we're going to host that event here in April for the Olympic trials, which is huge for us.
So Sporty, I hate to, Matt, Casey, and I are taking your gig here, but this may be interesting for the students, and both Matt and Casey just touched on something I thought just kind of an interesting aside to what we're talking about is, when we thought about moving forward, and we were talking about that at the start of this panel, is from a PGA Tour perspective, the league. What was really interesting to me was seeing my colleagues start to think about the way forward days after the cancellation of the players. And at the time in March, we canceled 4 weeks of the PGA Tour schedule. And so it was quickly established that Colonial in Fort Worth was where we were going to come back with the Charles Schwab event. And, I think as the industry, those in the that are listening, there's some great articles about this on Golf Digest. It's a great read. But to think that the PGA Tour is effectively establishing an arena, or we call it a bubble, but we're basically playing in a different community every week since June, and have had the ability to do it for 45 some odd weeks without any sort of material outbreak, to me is great hope for all of us to be able to figure out how to host guests. But as a sport, a lot of credit goes to our players and our staff here that have figured out a way to safely move from town to town to town. If we can do that, we can figure the, how to host people out, at least in this near-term environment.
Oh, thank you, Jared. And you guys, I told you yesterday when we did this pre-meeting, if you feel like a need to jump in, please do. I have a class tonight. I didn't cancel class, so I still have 2 hours of class after we finish up today, so I can save my voice. But I want to encourage people. The question and answer is available to you. And I have a question here from one of our, looks like one of my former students, and I'll throw this out to you guys. Julian says, do you believe that tickets will now have disclaimers about the possibility of contracting the virus? How are you protecting the venue with the possibility? How are you protecting the venue with the possibility of being a COVID spreader? So I guess they're kind of looking at liability. That question is sort of related to liability issues. So I'll throw it out to any of you who want to answer that question.
Well, I'll start. I'm sure Jared has an answer, but yes, it's already started. We've already changed that back in the ticket text to say that, by entering the facility, you are assuming the risks that are out there with any virus or, any virus that you can contract in a closed air, closed environment. So it is something that we're doing. You are, by walking into the venue, you are accepting that liability now with that ticket. It's unfortunate, but it's also, in my opinion, it's also very hard to defend. If someone's to say, I got the virus from place X, it's very hard to defend. It's very hard to say that's how you contracted the virus, in my opinion. So it's a lot of gray area that, we continue to monitor, but yeah, I think you're going to see those disclaimers continue from here out.
Yeah, we have made changes to our, the small print and our ticket back language in terms of liability and risks associated with attending the championship. So not unlike Matt and what they did, but also agree that, I think as we consider, and again, having just sold tickets and gone through this pre-promotional phase, the a plus side to a limited environment is, and this is no way to build a railroad. That's not how we're doing this long term. Because, you know, as a tournament, our brand is come one, come all. We want you to be here. So that's a challenge. But in the near term, you know, people who are, you know, willing to come and want to entertain and understand the environment are those that are participating and being sponsors this year. Doesn't mean that, you know, there's no risk or risk of liability, but you know, fortunately, from a demand perspective, I think these are largely people that understand what's going on environmentally, but we have made that change to our ticket backs.
Casey, you want to jump in? Are you good?
No, yeah, I'm good. I'm good on that. I think part of that question too is just what are we doing to help protect people? And again, it just goes back to the science and what we're being told right now today is that air quality is superior, and we need to put our efforts and focus into that.
Casey, you touched on it a little bit, and we got some more questions coming in from our students and other audience members. Dive a little bit deeper into that relationship that Oakview Group has with the University of Texas, and how what I saw was they get all the basketball games and you guys get everything else, but there's some limitation. You can't have a pro team in the building. And can you share a little bit more about how that deal is set up?
Yeah, I mean, it's not too incredibly exciting, sporty, but I will share some of it. So it's really, you know, Oakview and Live Nation and Matthew, we all assume the risk, all of the risk and all of the reward. Your typical facility management contracts, most of the time there's a certain amount that that the venue manager is paid per year, and then there's incentives if you do well, but you know, that they're responsible for capital improvements. Say the city who owns the building, whoever owns the building would be responsible for capital improvements and whatnot. This is a completely different model out there. This is assuming all of the risk and all of the reward. It's a 35-year deal that we essentially own the building, and the university donated the land. But as far as booking and how the university plays into it, they're very much still a partner. The basketball teams will be considered a tenant. They have, I think, 60 dates that they can reserve on the calendar. But again, just it is being built for live music and to replace the historic Frank Irwin Center that's been there. I think it's 42 years old. And this will give us in Austin a world-class facility that hasn't been there.
I see a question from one of my students who's in our grad venue class this evening with me, and I had a conversation with her last week. She's a music person, and Samantha asked a question specifically to Casey, to you, and Matt, you can follow up, but she said, Casey, you discussed how the live event industry, specifically concerts, can function for a long time. Cannot function for a long time without full capacity. Do you feel that concerts have been treated a little unfairly during the time since sporting events are happening, but the music industry is still unable to?
No, I don't think I think it's just economics, really. I mean, when you're talking about this level of 18,000 people, you know, you're talking about your Red Hot Chili Peppers and Luke Bryan's of the world and all Travis Scott's. I mean, their production is so incredibly expensive to put on. And I think if they can make the economics work, they would be happy to perform maybe to a limited capacity. So I think I'm seeing concerts on a smaller scale happen across the nation, but their expenses aren't as great. Matt, do you want to fill in there?
Yeah, and yeah, we're seeing smaller concerts happen. You know, Billy Bob's Honky Tonk is a famous bar, large concert venue that normally does about 5,500 people here in Fort Worth, and that's still operating under a different capacity. And I'm friends with a couple artists, and and you can get those artists that are under the $100,000 guarantee. That's where they fit in there. But to Casey's point, you can't go tell a guy who's making $1 million, every show, or let's just say that he's making $1 million every show, and say, hey, now during COVID, do you want to go play to half the people and make $500,000? And because that artist believes he's worth $1 million and he's not going to take $500,000 for that show. We actually early on, I tried to get aggressive and tried to make some offers to some artists, a couple, regional, famous names, but, regional here in Fort Worth that had a Fort Worth presence. And the feedback was, yeah, this is great. I tried to offer them at their full number, and just saying, we're going to do it limited capacity. Instead of playing Billy Bob's, you're going to come play the arena at limited capacity. And at the end of the day, they just weren't comfortable. They didn't want to take their staff out. They didn't, and this was very early on in the summer, and they didn't want to take their staff out. They didn't want to put their staff at risk for all that, their musicians at risk, their families at risk. So they, at the end of the day, they kind of sat back and said, you know what, we're going to wait. Now, moving forward, I'm still in some good discussions with a couple, native Fort Worth or DFW people that, we want to put it back to, bring back music concert together once we're at full capacity. And it's going to be with a mix of artists. We may have a Leon Bridges there. We might have a Ryan Bingham there. And then, have some local guys like a Pat Green there. So it's something that we're kind of we're working on. I think once concerts start back up, you're going to see it very regionalized first at the big arenas. And you might see, a band do a Texas date or a Texas and Florida date or a Texas, Oklahoma and Florida date. But those big touring concerts, i.e. the Red Hot Chili Peppers and, bands like that, the Drakes of the world, the Weekends of the world, they need that for their economics to work. They need to be at that full capacity because they believe, and they are worth that much money and they're not going to take less for it.
Jared, I want to shift to you. I think we all believe that you just play golf every day anyway. Probably after 3 o'clock, at least get 9 holes in. But I got a question from Richard here for you specifically. He says, Mr. Rice, as a lifelong Jacksonville native, I have been to many Players Championships tournaments and loved every one. I prefer the tournament being played in March, although the pink flowers on Mother's Day was always an awesome sight. What led to the decision to move the tournament dates, and do you see it being played in March for the foreseeable future?
So for the rest of the listeners and attendees, going into the 2018 tournament, we moved the Players Championship from May to March, which was its original date for 30 some odd years. And so, again, we were in May for about 12 or 13 years. And with the most recent switch, it was really due to a combining of the PGA Tour schedule. And when you look at how that was reformatted with the FedEx Cup and how our PGA Tour playoffs ended before Labor Day, and you look at the this is about grass. Yep, it's 4 o'clock and we're going to talk about growing grass. The agronomics and the environment and how you can grow certain type of grasses makes a difference. And so here in Northeast Florida, based on just the status and stature of the Players Championship, we felt we could deliver championship conditions in March better than we could in May, and really be the first first major championship of the year. So it goes Players, Masters, the US Open, British Open, and then the PGA Championship is kind of the cadence of events at the time. So gave us an opportunity to lead all that off and do it in a time of year where we felt like the conditions of the course would be more emblematic of the status and stature of the tournament.
Awesome, thank you. Casey, I want to shift back to you, and I have a new role in our college. I'm the Assistant Dean for Diversity and Inclusion, and being a venue guy, is something that I know our venue industry has been challenged with for many years. There are a lot of people who don't look like me, quite frankly. I know I've been fortunate to mentor a lot of young ladies in this business who've made me look really good as their mentor. Can you just share some of the challenges that you've faced as a venue manager? And then taking that a step further, you mentioned getting the best people to work for you. We know with once we come out of all of this pandemic stuff, I think it's going to be amazing. We're going to have a lot of activity in your buildings. So it looks like the Oakview group has really made a commitment to diversity with what I've seen. Can you just share some of those personal thoughts, and then organizationally what you guys are doing in that area to try to be inclusive?
Yes, and thank you for bringing this up, Sporty. It's one thing I think that has been a positive of COVID is that it stopped the industry long enough for people to really start thinking and talking about this, because it is a challenge and it is an issue. But we were so incredibly busy all the time. People had good intentions to really make this a priority, you know, a diverse and inclusive workforce, and really think through that. But now we've had the time to do that. And I'm very proud to be working for an industry that is a huge, huge focus right now, that I think is more than just lip service. Finally, it's more than just a brochure, a tagline on a brochure. This is something that is very important. And I was on a call not too long ago with an agency, and not only is it important to venue managers now, but it's important to the artists and their agents and their managers, and they are actively looking to work with venues and management companies where inclusion and diversity is a focus and a pillar of what they believe. I really quick I was never aware, when I was probably, you know, the students' ages that are listening, and coming up through the ranks, I wasn't really aware of any, you know, challenges in that regard. I mean, if I'm going to be honest, it seemed like the women were in marketing and the men were in operations and general management. I mean, that's the extent of my awareness at that time. It wasn't until I started going up through the ranks that I really started seeing it a little bit more. Less people of color, less women in high profile positions. And more so, what, you know, just a personal side of the story for me is, you know, my biggest challenge was in my career, my personal career, was equality of pay. And when people started talking about it more, I was like, wow, that is not adding up. I have triple the amount of experience as my male predecessor, yet I'm being offered 25% less. And so it wasn't until I got up in the ranks a little bit more that I saw that and pushed back on it. And quite frankly, had to be a little bit of a squeaky wheel, and stand up not only for myself, but for others that were battling the same thing. And I think that comes with, when you are a general manager, when you are a vice president and a president, and you're running an organization, you have an obligation to also fight for those people that you're in control of and you're managing. As far as my company in particular, Oakview Group is committed to, we all have our benchmarks when it comes to finances and operational metrics. But Tim Lewicki, who is very, very passionate about this, we are developing actual benchmarks for diversity and inclusion numbers and what that looks like, that we will be graded on as a company, as a facility. So that is a step in the right direction to really put our money where our mouth is. And I'm very proud to be a part of that organization. I do want to mention that for the students out there, diversifythestage.com is a new program in the industry that a lot of different organizations are participating in, and that will offer paid internships with a focus on diversity. So I think in order to start correcting this problem is we've got to start attracting young talent that is diverse and start there. So thanks, Sporty.
Thank you so much, Casey. Matt, you or Jared want to chime in on that at all?
Well, I'll just add that, you know, from a PGA Tour perspective, I believe it was during the Charles Schwab event in Fort Worth, our first event back. We had a moment of silence, you know, for all the, you know, to recognize the unrest that was happening in our country at the time. And, you know, that was, while tactical in its execution, our commissioner had come out. And I think just, all the more reason why he's such a great leader and responsible for this organization is he admittedly said, we need to do better. We need to ask tougher questions of ourselves and, be more diverse, not only in our offerings, but in how our company, considers these topics. And while we had done some things in terms of internal PGA Tour, what we call U groups, and there are various types of topics, but they really represent our 850 employees. The ability to take what we do internally in the area of diversity and inclusion and start to apply it more liberally to our tournaments is something we've really spent a lot of time on over the course of this pandemic. And, I think he said it really well that he wants to be accountable as a league. And we're kind of following those footsteps to be better about this topic ourselves.
Great, great. Matt, I'm gonna shift to you, and we always have one of these questions. It's important as we kind of get near the end. We got some time here. Jackie Rose asks, do you have any advice for students who are entering the workforce soon? Is there something we can do to set ourselves apart from others despite the companies reducing their amount of employees?
Yeah, and I don't think that message has changed that much. And some companies are reducing, but I think that's going to climb back up as well here in the near future. And what I would say is you got to take that starting position first, right? I think that's the most important thing. Casey started as a marketing intern. I started as a group sales, just selling group tickets to Disney on Ice and the circus and different events at the Philadelphia Spectrum and Wells Fargo Center, once I graduated. It was the last job I actually wanted. I didn't want to be in group sales. I knew nothing about selling. But at the end of the day, it actually probably was one of the best things I ever did for my career because it taught me a little bit about everything, taught me, how to deal with the person that says no, or I can't do that, and how to, work around that and, work with organizations, create that rapport. And I think that's the same thing you need to do in your job. You got to get in there and you got to make a statement. And, the statement's not going to be, yes, you can make the statement in your day-to-day job, but it's going to be also, what do you do to go above and beyond? Right now we have employees that are, we ask for volunteers to come out and help tag seats and tape different seats because we have social distancing guidelines. And, if you pay attention to those people who are there and say, yeah, I'll do it, and raise their hand and want to be a part of it and want to learn more about the other side of the business. And maybe it's not even just operations, but then they help out with the food and beverage department when we're serving a dinner for 700 people and they say, hey, where can I help out? What do you guys need? And those are the things that stand out for us. And, you got to find the right organization. You got to certainly put your foot in there, but you got to be willing to, to take the risk and do whatever it is. On that same sense, I will say, one of the disappointing things is, as we opened this arena, we had, some operations people come up and started with us. And, and then in the midst of the pandemic, they were asking about, and we had not laid anyone off, and they were asking about, after 5 months of work, 6 months of work, when their next raise was going to be, how their next job was going to, come about. And that was the part that was a little bit surprising and shocking to us. That we were, some of us were kind of taken back by it. And so I think there is and it's unfortunate in this industry, it takes time to put in your dues. And, Casey is an example. She moved around to many different facilities. I moved around to many different facilities. You have to take that chance and be able to grow. But, we're as a manager, I'm supportive for any of my employees to grow. So if they have, opportunities outside the company, I'm trying to do whatever I can to kind of help them grow along the way as well. It's not, yes, I look out for our company, but I look out for the person as well. And I always, I've told Casey from day one, I want you to be in the Casey business, and she's done a great job of that. And I think, at the end of the day, each one of these students has to be in their own business and, make a name for themselves and then be able to promote themselves, forward. But just understand the timing. And, there's only, I like to say it, there's only one president of Trail Drive Management Corp at Dickies Arena, and that's me, right? And so if you're not willing in this industry specifically, if you say, hey, I really want to live in, I really want to live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and that's the only place I want to live. Well, you're kind of limiting your opportunities as you kind of go through that, because there's only 1 or 2 arenas in Tulsa that'd be able to handle that, right? So it's just, you have to kind of look at it. You have to take chances. It's a strange business. It's very rewarding. I love what I do every day. Wouldn't change it for anything. Don't know that I want my kids to do it, but I enjoy it. And, I think you just have to go out there and make that name for yourself and continue doing that.
Jared, I know you and Casey want to chime in on this. Jared, I'll go to you first. What are some things that young people can do? Or so maybe even give us some
Sure.
bad things that you've seen young people do and like, wow, that's a career derailer.
We like to call that the CLM, the career limiting move. So there's 148 participants on here, I think, at this point, and Matt just nailed it. When I'm looking for a entry-level person, I'm not expecting you to know how to run the P&L and to sit in the corner. We're looking for hard work, people that are willing to raise their hand and to do multiple things and to be dependable and to be reliable and to work your tail off to get it done. Sometimes it's just that simple. And it comes across real quickly. I think the word culture has come up a couple of times, and humility is really important to not only how we sell, how we position the business, but also to our team. We're all type A, but our salesperson drives a forklift of potato chips down to a hospitality suite, on Sunday night of last year. Like, I remember it. We do what it has to be done, and you're not looking for accolades about it. So humility is a great trait, and something worth considering. And I'd say finally practice. One of the things that I ran into, a quick story, when I was in business development for the tour, I really didn't practice my pitches. Amazing. I mean, I didn't really, think this much of it. And so I did it with my boss for the first time before I got into a board scenario or a client scenario for a title sponsorship in the tour. And I didn't do well. And I think it was a great reminder that even though I had sold in Detroit, I had worked in promotions in Anaheim, that you always have to be practicing. How Casey, Matt, and Sporty speak and present themselves is not because, it just happens. So when you have a presentation, when there's that public speaking opportunity, practice it. If you want to be great, it takes repetition, just like anything else.
Casey, I'll let you finish up on that, what our students can do.
Okay. I mean, the guy said it perfectly. It's humility and enthusiasm with a little bit of just pestering sometimes. There's been a lot of entry-level positions I've hired that have had the humility and the enthusiasm, and then they just would not stop reaching out to me until I just, had to actually move forward with something with them. Quite frankly, I've had several people find me on LinkedIn that listen here because they just happen to be all from the University of South Carolina. That's a great way to start that connection. But the guy said it great. I mean, enthusiasm, I think, is something that is that a lot of people miss the mark on when they're coming out of the gate and doing interviews, is just being enthusiastic, that I'll do whatever it takes kind of attitude, are the people to the top for me.
Well, Casey, I always tell our students there's a fine line between being persistent and being a pest. And those of us who have been successful, we kind of know, we appreciate that line. When someone they just won't let go. They come back and forth, and to Matt's point, they're willing to volunteer. Can I just do something? I really want to do this. It's hard to continue to turn them down in this industry, because we know you really got to love it in order to stay with it for as long as you guys have. As we finish,
Can I add one more quick thing?
yeah, go ahead, Matt, please.
Just I recall when we were working at Colonial Life Arena, excuse me, right when it opened. I mean, there was a young student there that started working in our, our security and safety, as a guest services, coordinator. He's now running arenas. Went from there to, hey, he can do operations. We put him as a lead supervisor, in there, and then he started doing operations, and he found his niche in there, and he has people along the way. And I think the other thing is this industry is very large, but it's very small. And don't burn bridges when you're there. Do your best job, and those people will be some of the best advocates for you in the future as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And I know the companies you guys work for, one of your mottos was, in order to grow, you got to go. So I think it's important to be willing to move to a place that might not have been as desirable as you thought it might be. But, sometimes there's not a straight flight from Charlotte to San Diego. You got to go through Pittsburgh to catch that connecting flight sometimes. So I want you guys, just as we got about 12 minutes or so here, I want to leave a few minutes for each of you just to share your kind of optimistic crystal ball. Help us to see some really big spotlights at the end of this tunnel that we've sort of been in for the last 8, 9, 10 months or so. So Jared, I'll start out with you.
One of the things that we said shortly after the cancellation of the players is that we're going to rely on the strength of our partnerships now more than ever. And as a sales team, as a sales organization here at the tournament, we really promote asking great questions, listening, and delivering on expectations. And this was a period of time where we expended a lot of capital that we had built up, and I think Matt would agree that it really paid dividends that how we handled our partners and how we had delivered over the course of many years to get us through what I consider the last 12 months. We are at a better position for 2022 than we have ever been for any previous out year that I've ever worked for the Players Championship. So by that, I mean, looking a year ahead, a lot of our national partners, while they couldn't activate this year, are already securing their positions for next year and beyond. When you look at the strength of the game of golf, participation is through the roof. Callaway has had its biggest performing quarters now consecutively. Sports betting through with PGA Tour Golf is at an all-time high and engaging new fans. So I think that's one industry that we get a great opportunity to represent a really cool thing. And remember, fans is short for fanatical, and we get a chance to represent properties and venues that put people in scenarios where they have a great time. And to Sporty's point, there's evidence that that's coming back, and people are enthusiastic about doing it. So we're looking forward to getting through this just as much as the panelists and those that are listening.
Ed, I'll go to you.
Well, yeah, I think Jared hit it. I think there's a lot of pent up demand right now. I think people want to come out and go to events. I think Jared told you how quickly they sold out their allotment of tickets. I mean, I think that people want to come to events. They want to start going to live events. They want to do it in a safe environment. I think there's definitely a portion of those people that, are very strong about that. But I see 2022, I do see, fiscal year for me, 2022, which would start next fall, basically. I do see that coming back and being bigger than we were. And, I think that's where we all want this to go. We want to do it in the correct way. I think our staff has responded really well. Really proud of how my staff is. As a matter of fact, we just went through and, we actually, gave people raises this year. It wasn't a lot, and it wasn't the margins that, we could see in a full year, but we did give people raises for the duty that they've done over the past 12 months. And so really proud of our staff that we're able to handle that. And I think that gets the motivation of your staff too. When they see that, and they, half of them are thankful they still have jobs. The other half didn't expect a raise and got a little raise. And, I think that goes a long way to creating, what you want with your team and building your team up for success. I think live events are going to continue. We all want to continue it and do those big live concerts, at different venues. That we all want that to happen. But we're seeing all the live events. The Felds are now putting 2 Disney on Ices back on the road. You have USA Gymnastics that's doing stuff. We have now gymnastics groups wanting to do, made for TV things. So I think it's going to continue, and I think there's a bright future for everyone. I think we all just got to remain patient. The next 3 to probably until September are going to be tough still in the industry. But I think once we get through the summer, I do think that we're going to see that these live events turn around and go towards the positive to where they were probably pre-COVID.
Thanks, Mac. Casey, I put you on the hot seat at the beginning to tell the Dr. Regan story, so I'm going to let you have the last word here.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. And Matt, I just have to take a second and commend Matt for what you just said about taking care of your team and not furloughing anyone and giving them a raise. I mean, it's on the backs of our people that put these events on every day that make us successful. And so I just want to commend you as a leader for doing that. I think the future shows that there's going to be a level of appreciation from all parties involved who miss live music, miss live events. It's going to be more precious. I hope that it gives the industry, especially on the major touring side of things, a chance to reset and look at the financial deals that have been put in place over the years and have gotten just a little bit out of control, in my opinion, and have all of us work together on the venue, artist, agent, promoter side, come together and not try to recoup all of our losses in 1 year at the expense of someone else. So that is my wish. As it relates to the audience that we have today, I think just like all of you have said, when this business comes back, and it's starting to heat up now, it is going to be a domino effect to where there's so many people and there's going to be so much need for bodies and expertise in this field that it's going to just start this entire domino effect of people moving in different places. And it's going to open up a lot of opportunities for all of us at whatever level in your career you are, as well as the students that are listening today.
Well, thank you. You guys might not be able to see, I got my Mardi Gras beads on, so we're excited. We always love a party, and we know you guys throw big parties in your venues, so we appreciate that. I do want to probably encourage our students. I saw some great questions. We weren't able to get to all of those questions, so I encourage them to connect with you guys on LinkedIn. I'm sure when you see USC pop up, you'll be a little bit more willing to maybe connect with them. And I know, Jared, you got just 3 weeks before your event, so I'll put the disclaimer out there that, hey, if he doesn't get right back to you within 2 hours, he's probably busy getting ready for his tournament. But thank you so much. I am pleasure. It's been my pleasure. I've learned so much myself. We got a few more minutes. I'm going to send it back over to Dr. Regan and let him thank you guys and close us out.
Yep. First of all, Sporty, thank you very much for doing it. And a special thanks to Kim Boone. I think she's done everything well in her life except for Lexi, but that's okay. but I'm thankful for really all the time you put in and making sure this works out. I want all you guys to know, I hope you get down to South Carolina and we get to see a football game and, get into the Cockaboose or whatever we're going to do. I really appreciate having the alumni come and do this panel. Kim and I had talked about this some time back, and, I really wanted to be in person because I really think if the students are out there, these 3 people they have great personalities and they can really communicate with you, and they've helped so many students across, the decades already when you think about it, and how appreciative you've given your time. I'm asking them to be on my advisory board. You might as well know that. I've already asked them all. And you're going to be a great start to this, and you're going to know the other people on the board, and I will be sharing that with you soon. Can't thank you enough. I'm looking forward to our paths crossing sooner than later, and you guys all be safe and be well. Kim, you got anything else?
We're
She's getting
good.
mad at me now.
Yeah, we're all good.
We're all good.
Thanks,
Okay.
Kim. All right, guys, go make some snowmen. Casey, you and Matt, have some snowball fights, whatever you guys do when you get snow in Texas.
Okay, will do.
Say
Jared,
hi to Paige and to everybody, okay?
Jared, you should be able to get in 9
Sheila.
holes at least.
We got to run out. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.